It's been a good long time since I did an allotment tour, and I think the last one was in March. Somehow I went the entire month of April without showing you around the entire allotment garden, but I'm going to rectify that today. Being at the beginning of May, there's a lot more to see, and I've made a lot more progress on my original plot. I've got a second allotment plot right adjacent to my original one, and it is still very much at the beginning of its life as an allotment. I have a compost pile on there now, and I did do some clearing in a previous video, but we're gonna have a look to see what's happening there as well. So as an introduction to our site, on the Isle of Man, which is in Britain, and we're kind of a zone 8 or 9 if you're going by the American system, but it's a really weird zone 8 or 9 in that it's very mild here in the winter and it's very mild here in the summer. So it doesn't get too cold and it doesn't get too hot. And if you're in a similar zone, then definitely this should help you out. And if not, there's still a lot of temperate gardening ideas that I'm sure can be reused. The way that my tours work is that I have a look around my own plot, and then I have a look around the entire allotment field to see if there's any inspiration for both myself and for you guys. And an allotment garden is a community garden for anyone just tuning in, and we have about 20 different gardeners here, all gardening together on the slopes of Glenroy on the Isle of Man. So let's go have a look at my plot first, and then a walk around the site. And this first bed I'm planting up this year just with herbs, and I have 2 lines of calendula flowers that I have sown with seed, and I see some seedlings coming up. Let's have a look. Yeah. So this row is planted with a more traditional orange calendula flower. And this one, I've got 2 new types that I've not heard of before. So there's a pink calendula flower and also an orange one that has frilled petals. And they're starting to come up as well. Over here I have chamomile. And I started these off from seed, if you recall a few videos ago, and planted them out just recently. And it looks like the outer leaves are not doing great, but if you look in the center, they're all green and growing. So these guys will be fine. Now down here, I've transplanted some plants that I had growing at home, and I have chives, sage, and rosemary. And over in the distance, there's a type of thyme. And a lot more plants are going to be planted in along here as well. This is going to look completely different in the next month or 2. Directly next door, this is my wildlife area and flower patch. And you can see that my apple tree is blossoming. This is a variety called Red Love, and it's red inside and out. So pretty. So down here we have the Welsh onions that I love so much, and they're about to flower. Bees absolutely love them. When they do flower, they're just covered in bumblebees in particular. And I let them flower for wildlife, but I also take these more tender ones from the center and the sides and use them as I would giant chives or spring onions. And they're one of the first things to pop up in the spring, and I really can't recommend them enough. They're perennial, so really low maintenance. Now speckled throughout this little patch here, I've got different types of herbs and flowers, and they'll flower throughout the summer. And this is comfrey, and I grow this for a few reasons. First of all, these flowers will be covered in bees and all sorts of pollinators when they start flowering. The leaves and the roots are used for medicinal purposes. And then also you can cut all of the leaf growth off, make a really great organic fertilizer, a liquid feed, and it rebounds really quickly. And this is a type called Bocking 14, so it doesn't self-seed, which is great because it doesn't become invasive. Last year I had a second comfrey right next door, but I decided to take it out and transplant it elsewhere. And in its place, I've put this Cape gooseberry, and it produces berries that are inside kind of paper lanterns. There's some lavender along here. This is a celery flavored herb called lovage, which is really, really nice in soups and casseroles. And I think a lot of gardeners might look at this and go, uh-oh, what has she done? This is green alkanet, and it can become invasive, but again, pollinators love it. And also these blue flowers, they start to drift down into the pond, as you can see there, and it looks so pretty. I love it. And they are invasive. This one over here, you can see in the distance, right there, that one started growing on its own, and I've just let it go. But I've had it for several years, and it doesn't seem as invasive as other people would say. The pond is starting to fill in again. And I have 3 different plants in here. So there's the native flag irises in the back. These are marsh marigolds here. And my neighbor gave me this papyrus plant, which I've not grown before. And it looks like it's starting to regrow some leaves. I see some snails, some water snails in here. Look at that. I don't see any tadpoles at the moment, but I have seen them. They're in there somewhere. Compared to the rhubarb on my new plot, this one is really slow, but it is starting to grow. There's quite a few little shoots coming out. This gets quite big. I don't know the variety. It was on the plot when I took it. Same with the other ones, but it's coming along. And my raspberries are absolutely loving their mulch of composted horse manure. Look at all those green leaves. Now these stakes around here, I'll be putting supports. So just some string connecting the different posts just to hold the raspberries in. A couple of videos ago, I also planted out my Mara des Bois strawberries. And they are covered in flowers at the moment, but they're settling in nicely. And they seem a bit small compared to the other strawberries in this bed, which you can see on the left. But those ones here in the middle, so these 2 rows in the middle, these are 3-year-old, so this is a 3rd season strawberries. And the ones down here on the end, they're seeing their 2nd year. This is my no-dig potato patch. And the plants are coming up. You can see them popping out of the compost. But one problem that I've been having, as have others here on the site, is our local pheasants. And they keep digging up the plants. Look at that, it's ruined now. Eating the tubers. And leaving evidence that it was the pheasants. So one of my jobs in the next couple of days is putting netting over this patch. This is one of my beer traps, and it has caught a slug, just one though. A few insects. I'll put this lid back on. Maybe the slugs don't like the brand of beer. I certainly didn't. This winter I built this berry trellis for my thornless blackberries and raspberries that are popping up here, and they're doing great. Nice boundary area to the bottom of my plot, and then also the plants down here are just growing along the wires happily. Now, thornless blackberries are a little bit different from the blackberries you would pick in the wild. First of all, they don't have thorns. Pretty obvious. But also, the berries are 2 to 3 times larger than their wild cousins and absolutely sweet and delicious. My garlic is doing beautifully. Nice, strong shafts there. Strong green leaves. It's crazy to think that these will probably be ready to harvest next month. Well, towards the end of next month. And I put these out into the allotment last November, and they've just been growing on, persevering through the cold and the wind and the snow. And it looks like I'm going to be in the garlic. So I've been focusing most of my efforts on my current plot, which is over here. And my new half plot to the side has been slightly neglected, I'll admit it. And it's starting to really fill back in. So all of this needs to be trimmed down. And then I'm going to leave the pathway in here. But I have noticed there's quite a few little flowers and things popping up. Aren't these lovely? This plot also has quite a few currants, including red currants and black currants, and there's rhubarb here as well, and gooseberries. But this I want to show you is what happens when you clear land and then leave it without mulching the top. You can see all of the weed seeds that were exposed have started to grow, and it's going to quickly refill up if I don't do something right now. And what I've decided to do is get some cardboard and then lay it down on this plot, and then put manure on top, and then plant my pumpkins and courgettes and things through the cardboard. And I hope that will also help with the bindweed, because every time I dig in here, including when I planted this guy, I find lots and lots of bindweed roots, and it's very difficult to get rid of. Over here, this is where I transplanted the comfrey, another rhubarb, which I've been taking some stems off of. Lovely, delicious, really red stemmed variety. I think it's Victoria. I'm not 100% certain. Delicious. This is the compost pile, and I've been adding to it. And it's covered now. I will occasionally uncover it so that a bit more moisture gets in naturally. But I put quite a bit of green materials on just a couple days ago, and there's also coffee grounds. I spent coffee grounds from a local bakehouse and coffee shop, and lots of brown material too, so there's lots of sticks and twigs and all sorts in here. But it's about, you can see how full it is now. It's about half full, but it has actually broken down a little bit. It was a little bit higher. And it's not going to be long before I'm going to have to build a second bay to move the compost that's in there over into another bay, and then I'll start filling this guy back up again. There he is. Bad pheasant. There's the female. There's the male. I think that means we're gonna have babies. Oh dear. The couple who have this plot actually pulled me aside a few days ago because they didn't know what was digging up their potatoes. And as we have guessed, it's probably pheasants, and so they've put in this really good netting solution, just some wood and bamboo canes, and then laid netting over the top, and it's going to protect their potatoes. All right. A lot of people do use plastic bottles and this really cheap netting to protect their plants, but I'm not a fan at all. You'll know from earlier in the year when I did a little bit of a walk around and clean up of our site that plastic is a huge issue in allotment sites. A lot of these bottles are just forgotten about on plots. They end up all over the place. And that cheap green plastic netting, although it does protect plants initially, it doesn't have longevity and it breaks apart. And I really, really recommend that you don't use this green netting. Get heavy duty netting that's either made out of heavier duty plastic or string of some sort. It's much, much better than this stuff. It is just such a problem. Do check out that video. You can see me walking around our site and the kinds of plastic in allotments that are a real problem. This is a friend's plot and it's looking really tidy. And I think that tidy plots are important for a couple of reasons. First of all, it encourages you to come back and keep working. If it gets too messy or too covered in weeds, it can become a bit of a drag and a bit more of a mission than anything else. And then second of all, if there's anything lying on the ground, it can create a habitat for slugs and all kinds of pests. And I think when you're gardening, the point of it is to protect your plants so that you have a harvest. And keeping things tidy is definitely key. These are rhubarb flowers, and some varieties will throw them up a lot more easier than others. And if this happens to you, if you do have flower stalks coming up off of your rhubarb, you should break them off so that the plant invests more energy into growing leaves and stem than into producing these flowers. Some rows of potatoes, I think. And then there in the distance, an absolutely gigantic sage. Just look at that beauty. My sage hasn't gotten that big before. I wonder what variety it is. If you know, let me know as a comment down below. This is one way of growing strawberries that people use, either putting down landscaping fabric or plastic and then planting strawberries through the plastic. And this will stop weeds from competing with the strawberry plants, and also the berries won't be on the ground when they start fruiting. The only thing I would be concerned about is slugs living underneath. I planted out a gin maker's hedge, what was it, 2 months ago? And it is already starting to flower. Some of the plants. Look at this. They were sticks when I put them in the ground, pretty much. And now there's leaves on them, buds, flowers. So what did you think of the tour of the Laxey allotment? Leave me any questions or comments down below in the comments field. I would love to hear your opinion and feedback on my own plots, but also of anything that you've seen here in the allotment today. And if you've subscribed already or haven't, please subscribe first of all. And also I want to let you know that you should check, there's a little bell button right next to the subscribe button. And if you just check that, you'll get a notification for whenever I have a new video out. And they're every Sunday at 6 p.m. UK time, 1 p.m. Eastern. But that will just make sure that you never miss a video. In any case, I hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you next week for another gardening video here on the Lovely Greens YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.